All right, so we've got a two-parter today. We're going to have a rematch between Earl of Godwood and Ohjay. The first game won by Ohjay on time, although he had probably what was a losing position. So this time, Earl's going to have white, and we'll see what happens. So we got a king pawn opening, and we'll see what defense he decides to play. Okay, so the king's pawn game. We might see a Roy Lopez here. Yes, we see a Roy Lopez, and we get the Berlin defense out of the Roy Lopez. Ohjay decides to castle right away. I think Earl's been studying this. I've been talking to him. He's been looking at the lines in this Roy Lopez lately. White has the option of exchanging this knight for his bishop and giving him double pawns and giving himself a target maybe to go after with the weakened pawn structure. But instead he decides to open the game right away with the pawn captures. Now I think he has to take this knight here, or else he just dropped a pawn, because knight takes, knight takes. Oh wow, he's being aggressive here. So he pushes e5 instead, sacking a pawn for maybe some initiative here, and the knight will go where? What knight will go to d5? Now I think he would do best to capture the knight. Yep. So now he can retake his pawn. It's a question of which pawn recapture Ohjay wants to make. If he retakes with a b pawn, he'll have an open b file for his rook, or a semi-open b file for his rook, and he can play along that. And it's usually best to recapture towards the center. Yeah, so that's what he decides to do. So at some point you'll see him stick a rook here on this open b file. Oh, now he recaptures with the queen. Okay, so the queen has come out very early, and that eliminates, for the moment, this possibility of putting a rook on b7. All right, so he develops his light square bishop out. He's hitting the rook, so that has to move. Where to move it? Probably the semi-open, either the semi-open d file or more common the semi-open e file. Yep. So, okay, so we have rooks on the semi-open, a rook on the semi-open e file. This bishop is nice for Ohjay at the moment. It's strafing a lot of white squares in Earl's position, although it's undefended, so he has to watch. He has to keep an eye on it. Undefended pieces tend to drop off, and if I know Earl, I know he's sitting there right now thinking about tactics involving capturing this undefended bishop. So he's an excellent tactician, is Earl. So we have kingside castling for both sides. It's standard. It's tough to kingside. It's tough. It would be tough for black to queenside castle with this gaping hole on the b file. So looks like we're preparing a b5 push here for white, just grabbing some queenside space. That's usually what this a6 move will intend, and then it would be possible for him to fianchetto the bishop if he would like, his dark square bishop if he wants. He's a little bit behind in development. He still has two minor pieces sitting on the back of the board, but his queen is on a nice central square. It has nice sights and things, and at the moment it's preventing a rook from getting to the b file because it would drop his a pawn. The rook is watching this a pawn. So now Ohjay lashes out with d6, hoping to fix his pawn structure, probably, if Earl plays e takes d6, c takes d6, correcting his double pawns, which would probably be good for black. So we'll see what Earl decides to do. He decides to ignore it, and rather he'll retake. If captures, he'll retake with the knight or the rook or the queen even. So knight out to d2. I guess he wants to leave that knight and not directly challenge this knight sitting on d5. The rook is guarding the bishop, so the queen is free. Okay, knight moves. Now the knight is blocking the queen's view of the pawn, so this rook is free to come to the a file. The b file if he wants it to. The queens are opposing each other, but both queens are defended at the moment, so I don't see any tactics there. And now it looks like Earl is preparing to fianchetto his bishop. And okay, so Ohjay gets his light square bishop out of there. It's now maybe a bit of a bad piece, but he'll probably push He'll probably push c5 at some point, hitting the queen and opening this diagonal for his light square bishop since it was blocked off by these pawn moves here. So he'll be able to get the c5 push in with tempo, which will be nice for him. So hard to say who has a better position at this point. Maybe OJ has some weaknesses here with this double pawn structure, but looks pretty solid. Earl certainly has a space advantage. Yeah, so that c5 push came with tempo, and queen goes to g4, eyeing down the king. This is a very aggressive square, and of course, if he can capture this pawn, it would win a piece, because he'd be threatening mate with the queen and the bishop, and he'd have to do something about that, and then would drop this bishop. So, yeah, OJ made the right decision there. He has to take, and now Earl's knight probably comes to life with knight takes pawn, or even bishop takes pawn would threaten mate, but that could be parried. So we have an even time edge here. So White's getting some initiative. Earl has got some initiative. I guess, although he can't take with the knight because this knight would hang. So he'll have to either take with the bishop or the rook. These two knights, this knight is only defended by his partner here on f3. So bishop takes would threaten mate in 1. Although that threat could be pretty easily parried. Actually, OJ has a tactic now. He can grab this knight with his bishop, removing the defender of this knight, and then grab this knight with the queen. So I guess Earl spotted that and moves his knight in to a more aggressive square on e4. Now he can grab this pawn with the knight, and maybe launch some kind of kingside attack. OJ's gonna have to play some defense now. He's got a 20-second edge, but Earl certainly has some attacking prospects here, and he's thinking about what to do, because he knows that Earl is coming for him. Getting down to be about even on time. Okay, he decides to get the queen off of this square with a bishop attack. I think you'll probably see maybe queen to g3, so he can keep this pawn pinned here. This pawn is pinned at the moment to the king. You might see queen to g3 here. Where else could he go, really? He doesn't have that many options. Oh, I guess he decides to go in for h5. So now the threat is knight to g5. Bishop takes knight, knight takes knight. Okay, so he parries that threat with f6, so he noticed that. So some good defense here from OJ. He's hanging in. Also defended his pawn, so he's actually up a pawn at the moment. Rook coming over to attack the queen and grab the open d file. That's a bit of maybe an in-between move. And Earl's going to have to figure something out here. He's a little behind on time, and he's slowly losing his initiative with some good defensive play by OJ. Okay, bishop blocks. Now that bishop is pinned, so maybe he can find some way to take advantage of the light squares on this diagonal, seeing as that bishop is pinned. But that's going to be tough to come up with in 30 seconds. 20-second time edge now, a little bit more, 25-second time edge for OJ. Might be time to think about a sacrifice, a bishop sacrifice, just so he can get his knight here. Yeah, and that's what he does. Sacrifices the bishop now so he can get his knight onto this square. Bishop takes, knight takes. Okay, so knight, you'll probably see a knight come here. Yep. And now if bishop takes, knight takes again, he'll be threatening mate. And I don't think there's any defense. He's actually threatening mate right now. Queen takes h7 is mate. Oh, it's not mate, but it will be shortly after queen. Okay, so now knight takes again is coming. Now the threat is queen takes h7. Oh, he sacrifices his queen because he thinks he's going to win on time. So a completely one game for Earl now, but he's got a massive time delay, 16 seconds to 31 seconds. So he's going to have to come up with something quick. And so maybe rook to the 7th now, threatening mate. Yeah, rook to the 7th, threatening mate. Mate in 1 threatened. Does OJ have a defense? Yes, he has one move. No, he had 2 moves. Okay, so now mate is threatened again. He's going to have to play rook here to stop the mate. He does. So rook takes. Will we see rook takes? And loses on time. Okay. So a great game. Really good game. Another positional win. Another win in position for Earl, and but an actual win for OJ on time. So 2 great games. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and we'll talk to you later.